topics. Demos will have Gabor, because his excuse doesn't apply this week. Audit Trails. It should take around 2 or 3 hours. Who else has a demo?
If there's any time left, I'll demo shortcodes again. But I want to see Audit Trails as well.
Again, maybe. Shortcodes. So should I put an uppercase C?
You could probably put a lowercase c now. I think maybe last week it was the uppercase.
Antoine, any demo? Nope.
Nope.
Nope. And but Antoine, share the link. We'll see if we have demo. Well, if we have time. And we'll share the link with everyone. Surprising link. Then topics. Anything special we should talk about? Because Zoltan is here, Zoltan wants to talk about 1.0.
That wouldn't actually be a bad idea, yeah. Now that we have almost Audit Trail.
Well, whatever, even without Audit Trails. And I think we talked about it last week. Even that we could ship 1.0. We said it will be time-based, and we've had time since RC2. So status. I updated this one. 9th of July, nothing, and 1 or 2 questions. That was it on 1.0. Orchard 1. Orchard core last week was the 21st. When it says 254, I don't know what it means. Update, we talked about it, and we talked about David also. Add David, then update template JSON. Template.json. Templates. Okay, this is the .NET templates, .NET new templates. Shouldn't we uppercase CMS whenever we mention CMS? I think so. Update template. Shouldn't we uppercase MVC? I don't know. I'm not sure we are consistent.
So we didn't in the other templates. I think we noticed this issue when we did RC2 that 2 of the templates were named the same. So in the other templates, they're lowercase.
We need to, we need to look at the new templates from .NET. Okay, and for namespace, definitely we don't uppercase, but for the display names, maybe we won't. And at the same time, if ASP.NET doesn't uppercase that in their names, then we don't. Include stereotype on build editor for placement. So I should remove that. Doesn't hurt, but looks like a very specific issue you had.
You can do stereotype placement matching with the content type provider, but that wasn't here.
Refactor media shapes and correct formatting in view, a PR we saw last week. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. It was a change that was incurring too much complexity for the fix, and then Dean found a better, simpler fix. Good. Upgrade code mirror. It's like oh no, this was Fontosa. Okay. But we updated Lucene last week, and there is a new one this week. no op content manager instead of exception. So display not found, and now not found. Content item ID null. Interesting. We'll trust you. But at the same time, I don't know how to provide, or if we don't set the content item ID, we have null value here.
Yeah, that one can happen on the blank recipe when there's no content item ID for the home route.
And
but the issue was actually in the content manager that we're throwing an exception.
Passing null, I assume there will be an exception here. Yes. And then in this case, you just return null. Because this guy will test it.
Yeah, that guy tests it and then returns null. So just reducing a bit of boilerplate code.
New material docs, document HTML sanitizer and Markdown pipelines options, documentation. Lots of documentation. Sanitizer, sanitize helpers, Sanitizer. The Sanitizer is here. The Sanitizer has been copy-pasted. Cool. Sanitizer and sanitization. Okay. Here, okay, thank you. In highlight invalid fields. Content fields. So what does it look like to highlight a field? It implies localizing error messages, I assume, first, then. Oh, wait, if not, then what do we do? Interesting. I want to check the other ones. Simple one, text field. Text field. Okay, here it's fixing the name of the field to highlight. So the issue that the date time here was showing is that it was not displaying any error message. Okay. So correct your messages and also correct names. Good job. Yeah, that's what I would have expected for all the fields. I didn't know we were missing some messages for some of them. Removed unused variables from few files. Okay. Okay. Cool. Parag, a new contributor. Export to Wow, the deployment target, add to deployment plan. Oh, that's an old PR. The export button in the content items directly, content items list. Add reference to Resource TagHelpers project. I assume for the TagHelpers. Localization. Okay. Good. So demo time. And we start with Gabor. I'm not sure who we will end with. Say something, Gabor, because we don't hear anything. Or I don't. And maybe I don't hear anyone.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, good, good. Nope. Try again. Oh, yes, we can hear you. Good. Say something. Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's start it from the beginning. So here you can see an Audit Trail site. I set up the site using the blog recipe, and I have just enabled the Audit Trail module. And after, if you have enabled the Audit Trail module, you will find a new option here, surprisingly called Audit Trail. And if you navigate here, you will see a table that will contain the recorded events in the Audit Trail, but for now it's empty. So let's put some data here. So let's say I would like to edit the existing blog post in the blog recipe. For example, let's say I would like to edit the title of my blog post, and I'm going to publish this new one. And after, if I navigate back to Audit Trail, I'm going to see two new recorded events. First one is telling me that a new blog post has been saved, and the second one is about a new blog post has been published. And here you can see a version that says this is the second version of the blog post, because the first version has been created when I am installed the site. And when I install the site, the Audit Trail module hasn't been enabled, so Audit Trail cannot record that version. The reason why we saw two records here is that because when we click on the Publish button, first lunr-core saves the new version. After that, it publishes the new one. You can see that every event can have a category. Every event can have user. You can say that I wanna log the client IP address or not. You can see the timestamp when the event has occurred, and a summary which can be customizable. So you can say that for your content event, which could be saved or published, I wanna show a different kind of summary here. And as you can see, the version and the display text of the given content item is clickable. So let's say I click on the version 2, and if I do that, I'm going to see a read-only editor of the content item, and that editor contains the values of the properties which is saved when I published the second version of this blog post. So here you can see that state of the content item as you would do when you use the Audit Trail module in Orchard 1 as well. So let's say I'm gonna edit my blog post again and change something here. So this is a change text. Let's publish it again. And if I navigate back here, now you can see I have a new version 3 here. But if I would like to see the version 2, there is no change text because it's about showing me the second version of the blog post. But if I click on the version 3, I can see that the change text appears at the Markdown body editor here. So this is about showing you the later and the current version of the given content item. And you can also see a details link here. Let's say I would like to see the details of these saved events. So if I click on the details, I will see some basic data like the name of the event, the category, timestamp, username, content item ID, etc., etc. And here comes a bigger table which shows me the diff between the event that I'm just viewing and between the later content item. So here you can see that I changed something in the Markdown of the Markdown body part, which is attached to a blog post content type. And here I added these change text, and the editor showed me this with green. It means it's an addition. But if we see the change in the content item version ID, you can see that this was the content item version ID of the previous blog post, and now it gets a new one with this one. You can see the modified UTC has been changed. You can see because it's a saved event, in this case, the value of the published is changed from true to false. And here you can see two different kind of switches. First one is default enabled. It's called show diff. It means you can see the content of this diff column, but you can say, I would like to see the before and after columns as well. So if I do this, you can have new columns where you can see the previous state and the current state of the given columns. It's quite hard to see here the change because the Markdown body has quite a lot of content here, but you can clearly see the changes between the modified UTC and the published values as well. And of course, if you would like to use this one, not for the diff one, you can just simply say, I would like to see only this view. Seeing the diff view could be great because it shows something similar when you do a push to a Git version control system, and you can see the changes here as you could see in a Git-based system. Another thing that could be interesting when you are using Audit Trail is if you see the table, you can see restore URL here, not just the details one. Restore is about restoring given content item to this state and creating a new draft version of it. So let's say I would like to restore the state of the blog post to this one. So this one hasn't contained the changed text, and this one has that change. So let's say I would like to restore my blog post to this state. Yes, I would like to restore to version 2. If I say yes and navigate back to blog, you can see that here is draft blog post, and this draft blog post has only this line here without the changed text. I can say, oh, it's great, I can publish this one, and if I publish this one, the Audit Trail table will show that this blog post was restored at version 4, and I saved the version 4, and after I published the version 4 of that blog post. Here in the table, you can see some default filters. That's also inspired by the Audit Trail module, and I think that was written by Sipka in Orchard 1. You can filter by categories. We have now 2 categories, the content item categories and the user categories. To see what are user categories, let's say I'm gonna log out, and I'm gonna log in as admin again, but I'm gonna mistype the password, so I will get an invalid login attempt. But after I log in successfully, navigate back to Audit Trail, I will see the 2 events. That means the admin user has failed login at that time, and after an admin user has a successful login at that time. As you can see here, we have a comment column here, which is about you can write some text, then you would like to save or publish a new version of a given content item. To use the comment column, you have to attach the Audit Trail part to your content type. So let's see how you can do that. So let's say I'm gonna navigate to the content definition of a page, and I click on the add parts, and I will attach the Audit Trail one, and I hit save. So let's create a new page, and if you create a new page, you will see that new editor here called comment. So let's say the page will be, the title will be new page, and the comment will be new creating new page, publish. Go back to Audit Trail, and you will see that I create the version 1 of my new page with that comment, and after I published the version 1 of my new page using the same comment. So this is about how you can use the Audit Trail table in a nutshell, but that's not all for now. If you navigate to configuration settings, you will see a new one called Audit Trail, and under that you will have quite a lot of options where you can say what kind of event you would like to enable or disable when you are recording different kind of events. You can see all of the content item events here listed, and you can see the supported user events: sign up, logged in, login failed, enable, created, deleted, etc., etc. And here you can say, I would like to enable the client IP address logging. And here you can see a button called Set Blacklisted Content Types. Here you can see a new modal window that contains all the available content types in your system. So you can say, I don't want to log the changes of the article content type. I don't want to log the changes of the page content type, etc., etc. So in that case, you can restrict what kind of content type changes you would want to log. There's also a tuning settings but you can say I would like to disable or enable trimmings. It's enabled by default, and here you can see a period. So in that case, we will keep the audit data for 10 days. So after 10 days, this background task is just about to delete every Audit Trail logs which are older than 10 days. So if you don't want to keep Audit Trail data forever, you can use trimming. But if you would like to keep the changes in the system, you can say, I would like to disable Audit Trail trimming. And here you can see the last time when these trimming was do the work. One more thing that I haven't shown you yet is that about you can restore your content item after you delete it, because every content item deletion in our core is actually a soft delete, so it will still remain in the database, but the Audit Trail log is also contains the schema of the content item, so Audit Trail will represent you the new content item based on the data that is saved in the Audit Trail event. So let's navigate back to content items and try to delete my new page. And navigate back to the Audit Trail data table. And here you can see that the page, new page, was removed. So let's say I would like to restore my page. I will click on restore, and yes, I'm sure I would like to restore this content item. And if I navigate back to content items, I will see the new page as a draft, and here you can see the title, permalink, and everything which I have been just added. But of course, I can add here multiple widgets if I would like to, and handling widgets and handling these kind of changes is a thing that I would like to show you and discuss with you, because if I say I would like to add, for example, a new row HTML, and I say for row HTML widget and hit publish, after that you can see that I restored my new page as version 2. I saved this as version 2 and I published this as version 2. But if I navigate to the details, you can see this kind of diff. That's because when you work with Flowpart contains a JSON inside the widgets. So in that case, the diff would be, how can I say, a little bit not too nice to see and not too nice to work with. To create a little bit bigger diff, let's say I add another row HTML widget here. I hit publish. Again, see the detail of that saved event of the version R or of the version 3 for now. And you can see that the modified UTC of the previous row HTML widget has been changed. And you can see that here is the JSON of the new row HTML widget. Yeah, and as I mentioned, you can filter content item events. I would like to see just the user events, or I would like to see just the content item events, I can use sort if I would like to do. In that case, yes, created, published, removed, restored. There's also a pagination that you can use to find your Audit Trail log. And of course, you can search for the user. So if I say admin, I will not find anything, but if I type admin, Audit Trail will list me all of the data, because everything which I have just did, I did with the admin user. Yes, so it's the first version of Audit Trail. The Audit Trail module in Orchard 1 has a lot more features and functions, and it's planned to add those functionality to Audit Trail in a later phase. But first, I would like to do and implement the basics of this module, and after you say that the code will be great, or will be good to merge to dev, after I think I can add another providers and everything to this list. And about how to extend Audit Trail and how to add new providers and how to add new filters, I created a documentation which is in progress, but here you can read about the usage of the Audit Trail table. You can find some samples and some details about the given providers that you can use. You can read about how to add filters here. So for example, how can you add the filter to filter events that is happened with, for example, with the page or the blog post content types. So add the filter here to filter events by a content type, and so on and so on. And you have the possibility to display additional columns, because as in the way I have just created the filters in Audit Trail, I have created an extension point where you can add your own column, and in your own column you can also display your own value. For example, in this little example, you can just add the ID of the given Audit Trail event entity. It's a silly example, but it shows you how you can implement those providers to use it, and so on and so on. So I'm gonna add some screens to the README file, and I'm gonna push it soon to the pull request of the Audit Trail module. So I think that's it for now in a nutshell about the Audit Trail module.
Thank you very much. So I took some notes while you were demoing, and but I want to give you the feedback right now, because I assume you will. It's recorded and you will share it on the Lombic demos. So that's good. And I want to give time to Dean to show the things. If we have time, I go back to the comments, to my comments at least, and because I want to see the other demos. Otherwise, we can do it offline. But does anyone have questions, comments, as long as it doesn't take more than 10 minutes, because we want time after?
Soteris has 2 in the chat.
Okay, sorry. So Soteris, I'm reading your questions. Great demo. 2 question IDs. Does compare works for older versions of content item and not only for previous one? Interesting. So ideally, you would be able to check 2 versions and say compare.
Yes, in WordPress there is a timeline slider where you can, slide the two content items to different versions. So,
That makes sense. Like, because when you want to see everything that changed from today since a month ago, for instance, you have to pick two different versions and not just iterate over all the versions. You want to see all the changes in one place. I see. Yep. Interesting. It would be nice to have an issue, or is there? Yeah, maybe on the Audit Trail issue to provide some feedback. Like if you can take some screenshots of what you mentioned for IDs, that might be interesting.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And you say, so you mentioned blacklist label to blocklist. I was noting, I will say, not that. What was my recommendation to use? 1 second. Ignored content types instead of blacklisted content types. And then maybe I was also wondering why not the opposite, actually just mention what types you want to track instead of disabling some types. I'm not sure which one is better. If there is, I would maybe have just checked everything and then you can uncheck what you don't want to track because you don't want to, I don't know.
Yeah, it would be quite nice to have an include option because there's a lot of content types there that probably won't be used in primary content items. There's a lot of kind of flow parts and what have you. So sometimes it might be easier to include rather than
exclude. Opt out. But, yeah. Semantically, for me, it looks better to opt in and then maybe have an option to say automatically opt in for new types, and then they will be added automatically when a new type is created. I don't know. That seems weird to just say ignore this type instead. I don't know.
If you enable the Audit Trail module by default, it will logs every event, and by default it logs every content type changes. And if you say I don't want to see the changes of that content type, or I don't want to see the cloned events, you can say disable that event, or you can say I'm not care about the blog post changes. I think it's better to have a blacklist instead of a whitelist.
But or you could have the checkbox in the content type definition checked by default, and then users can, when they create a type, they can say I don't want that, or when they create, like it's, I don't know, just feedback. We'll see what people say.
I see.
Just to make it more consistent, everything. But that's a way. I mean, that's a valid way too. Anything else? I have 20 lines on my question/comments notepad, so I don't worry. That's normal. When you have lots of features to show, there are lots of comments.
It's a great feature.
Anything else from anyone?
Antoine asked whether we can filter on filter or events for a specific content item.
Oh, specific content. What did you say? I didn't see that. Oh, can we filter on the events on one specific content item? In my notes I wanted content types, like show me all the changes for blog posts. I didn't think about content item, but it might make sense, like to filter on a specific content item. It might not be good. Yes. Oh, yeah. That should be in the content item list. No, not here. Go to content items. What Antoine means is when you go to the content items list here, you need an action on the right to say, show me the history on a specific content item. You see actions, the actions button.
Yes. In Orchard 1, you have the ability to see the given content item changes here. Okay. So if you open the editor of a given content item, here you saw a quite similar table when you visit.
But forget about
Audit Trail, but it's just about showing you the changes of the given content item.
Forget about Orchard 1, think Orchard Core. And in the content items list, an action, a button to go to the Audit Trail page that is already filtered for this content item. Like, you see actions here, there are 6 buttons action here. A button called versions or history. And when you click history, it links to your Audit Trail page with a query string with the content item ID, and you just display the history for this content item. That's what you want.
Oh,
Antoine, you agree? That's what you want? That's what people want. I mean,
yes.
Exactly. And then you can see the history and you can restore. So it's very easy for you because you just have to query this content item and show this in your table. And then, so that's what you want. It's just a link and a filter on your, you don't have to provide it as a filter in your filter tab. You just have to handle it in the URL to filter a content item. And then the link is from the content items list. That's where people are when they want to see the history of their content item. So good idea. I just thought about
it should be super easy as well, because that drop-down list is zoned and extendable now, so you can just add to it easily.
Antoine will provide a PR to your PR. But people have requested for that, and every time they requested for that, we said it will be included in the Audit Trail. When we have the Audit Trail, we'll have that. So good comment. Okay, so I'll talk to you offline with all my comments, or we can talk another when we have time later next week, or during a triage if you join. I have lots of questions and comments. Invite Zoltan also if you want to have someone to side by you and explain why it's this way.
And just one more thing about when you are creating a new deployment plan, you will have the availability to add a new deployment step.
Yes.
To
Audit Trail.
To export the Audit Trail settings and the Audit Trail trimming settings. Thanks to Antoine new PR.
But why not? That's good. But I was expecting to see the Audit Trail itself, to be able to export the Audit Trail. That would be interesting. Does it make sense? Maybe that doesn't make sense, but I will see like a way.
Export the Audit Trail events, or what do you mean?
Yeah, not as a way to restore it somewhere, but as a way to make a copy of the Audit Trail, like for legal reasons, or to be able to manipulate it externally. You see, just for data export, not just for importing it somewhere else. I don't think it makes sense. It might, but I don't care. At least to be able to export the Audit Trail itself. So let's use the deployment steps to do that, because that's reusable, instead of having a custom CSV export or whatever. But that might be something else you want. But that must be super useful to be able to export the Audit Trail with all the data you want, with the options to include the client IP, for instance, or not, the same way you record it, just because maybe legally you might want to have to do some outputs like this before you trim, for instance. So might be super useful.
Yeah, that will be a huge JSON file, but
well, not your problem. Provide the way. It's not your issue. I mean, exporting all the content items will be a huge JSON file, and in the end, what happens is that it's not a JSON file, unless you say so. It's a zip file containing all the JSON that will be downloaded, like streamed from a file. So that's how it works. So not your problem. Provide a way. That should be super easy.
Okay.
Just a comment. I will add it to my notepad. Export Audit Trail. Feedback. Doesn't have to be done right now. It's just IDs and stuff we might need later. Okay.
One more question. Does it support localization?
It has to. It's just a localized content, you mean? It's just a content item version. So
yeah.
Maybe interesting would be to be able to filter by culture. But yeah, that should work out of the box, right?
Yes, that should work out of the box, and you can also add a new filter here to filter by a given culture. So I think it's also doable.
And if you have the content item filter from the content items, that's even good, even better, because when you will list the history of a content item, it will be just of this localization, because it's a content item is a localized version, is a localized content item. So each localization of content item is a different content item. So it will be nice in the UI also. Okay, thank you, Gabor. I want to see other demos and other topics. So let's give the screen to Dean to see some updates on the shortcode. Thanks a lot.
Back.
Cool. That was a great demo. Thanks, Gabor. Looks really cool. Let me know when you're seeing the screen there, guys.
Good. All good.
Excellent. So just a quick kind of update on where we're going with shortcodes to get a bit of feedback and make some UI decisions. I have done some updates to the modal pop-up and swapped it in for a modal rather than the pop-up that we did before, which is actually, it's a lot bigger and more intrusive, but it does make the code a whole bunch simpler because it's just a modal. So you now have options on the name of your shortcode, a little description for it, and then a usage where you can kind of provide examples of how you would potentially use the code. So that's all kind of configurable in the UI for, if we look at the templates, you get a hint now, you get a usage tab and the categories that it could go into, and then the actual shortcode template itself. And what else have we got in there as well? The other thing that I was just playing around with this morning was just a quick example of how to write a shortcode and then sanitize the user input. So what we can do is capture the input from the shortcode, produce a bit of HTML here, then pass it through the sanitizer, which is a filter I've just added because I forgot to add it on the last sanitizer PR. And then we get a safe one versus the other option, which is where it just returns the entire image.
There's a bug here, but it's not your fault, it's my fault. I fixed it in Fluid. The capture tag, you have to pipe row it because it's encoding it.
That would explain why I've been having so many encoding problems today.
It's fixed now. So the capture now won't encode, but return an encoded result. So it will know that it doesn't have to encode it when you call input without the row. So it's, I think it's a NuGet. You just need to update in Ocean. Sorry, someone found it last week.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week at Triage or something, didn't we? Yeah, so there at the moment there is quite a bit of raw encoding that's coming back, and I do need to have a little bit of an eval with that new version of Fluid to see just how much we need, because it adds some extra complications. But the example of this one, which is the unsafe one, I'll show you the. It is this one here, where you're passing some extra JavaScript strings through the HTML, and you'll end up with, when I refresh this page, your cross-site scripting error. It doesn't actually render the image because the image has kind of been mangled now, which may be related to that capture thing actually. and then you get the safe one. They're not lining up very well at the moment. It's just a demo. So yeah, probably that's it. This is getting kind of very close.
It's good. I will rename it to shortcodes instead of shortcode templates.
Yes, that's fine.
And
that's easy to do. Do you prefer does everyone prefer the modal?
Oh, dude, don't ask me. I so much prefer it. And you can filter it on the top left. Can you? Does the filter work?
Well, it will when I finish writing it. It doesn't quite work yet. There's just a demo.
And
so the options with this one, or I think the old one's still there as well, which is this one. Oh no, it's not working at the moment because I disabled some stuff with it.
But otherwise, the result here now will be the same thing. When you click, it will be the model. Like this, yeah.
Like this. Select. Cool. Easy.
So more feedback than just one voice. So my first comment was the shortcodes name in the menu instead of shortcode templates. And second comment is nitpicking in when you edit a shortcode. It would be nice to have the same editor for the categories as the tags editor, so you can display the existing ones and either pick one or type one.
Yeah, we could possibly do that.
Later, it's just nitpicking.
Yeah, I was wondering about those. There's quite a few places we could do with putting that that multi-select editor in. The other thing I've done as well is,
and plus feature, like a SPA component on this page. So when you type a hint, a usage, and categories, you see the output of the box in the pop-up on the right as you type. So you see what exactly how it looks like. But
I was going to put the little box here. Actually, I haven't had time to do that.
So you see what I mean?
Yeah. No,
live as you type,
was
preview of the shortcode in the pop-up, and this way people are encouraged to type a nice hint. They see the category. That's really nice. But yeah, super plus later next year when you have time.
Excellent, cool. Well, that's a nice quick demo. This one should probably be ready to go reasonably soon, I'd imagine.
Yeah, because it works. So in terms of functionality, it will be the same. Just then, if we need to update the UI, then we can update the UI. It's independent. Thanks a lot. It's beautiful.
No problem.
Then sharing screen. So any questions, comments? So Thierry, questions, comments? Because I know you can talk. Somebody else wants to talk. So Antoine pinged me with a site and I checked, and yeah, so www.starbucks.com. I thought it was .com, but it's just the SG. Singapore, Starbucks, and like it's not like, oh, let's do a fake site. It's the full site, the menus, the job offers, everything. And I checked on W3 text, and yeah, it was there. So I assume that's how you found it. Rewards. So every page here is, even the menu is here. And if you don't trust anyone, you can go on the admin page. You will recognize the admin page. And if you don't trust it either, you can go, well, you saw the little logo, and there is the header, core. It's on IS, so not Kestrel directly. So yeah, that's it. Super nice. And even the content pages are done this way. So for instance, nice images, carousels. Looks good. So new site to put on the show orchard. I'm sure some people here are able to add stuff to show orchard. Yeah, and we will kill the seagulls at some point. Not too loud. I shared a video with Dean last week about that. Good. Comments, questions? On time. Oh, and just because I saw Bertrand, so Bertrand made
that looks really cool.
Hi, I'm here. That doesn't have anything to do with our charm.
No, it does, because we use lots of libraries that contributors make.
You know what it has to do with our charm? It's that that's time I didn't spend on working on commerce.
Yeah, but lunr-core.
The download counts are not updated often enough. Look at the stars on GitHub. That's the metric that I care about right now. That's in 3 days.
So if you don't know lunr.js, it's like, well, let's talk. You can talk about it. Take 2 minutes to explain.
Yeah. So lunr.js is a very useful library in the JavaScript world that you can use on Node and on the client side that enables you to create very simple search indexes. So that's very good for small sites. It doesn't scale. For example, the memory footprints of indexes is way too large for large projects. But for small projects, it's absolutely awesome. It takes literally 5 minutes to set up. And .NET didn't have anything. Well, there were a few small projects that were trying to address that need, but nothing really that great. So I took the lunr.js code and I just ported it to .NET Core and .NET Standard. And it took me a month of, evenings and weekends. And it's done. It works. And people love it. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, and even DodG is using it in his wiki, in the .NET Core wiki.
Yep.
And yeah, so you can, so for those who don't know, like you see here, LeNet is a static site generator, and this is a wiki in .NET Core. What they do with that is they use, well, I assume that they do that. So Alexander is using, or should be using lunr-core to generate an index in C# when the site is generated. And then the index itself is serialized as JSON, so that the lunr.js library can read this format, because it's its own format, and do search on the client side with the index field on the server side.
Yeah, you're right to point this out, because this was one of my goals, which was to always be able to interact with the client side version of it, so that you can prepare an index on the server, send it on the client, do some searches on the client, get crazy about that, and scroll down a little bit and show the code to implement it. This is how you build an index. It's less than 10 lines of code, if I count correctly, something like that. Yeah, it's very easy. Adding a document is just adding a dictionary, and then searching is just an await for each over search results. It's as simple as it gets. Still, it has all the features you would expect from a simple search engine. You have fuzzy search, you have wildcards, you have scoring, required and negative required field searches. You can parse quite complex queries. I'm very happy with it.
And I like it because
it's scratched an itch. I mean the way the people reacted to that is awesome, because it was really something that was missing in the ecosystem.
We need more choice for every type of libraries, more solutions adapted to your needs. And Lucene is just one solution, and we don't have enough solutions.
And Lucene is awesome, and it's great for something like Orchard. But this addresses a different problem, which is being able to add search to any application very fast with as little effort as possible. And you know, if I wanted one thing to come out of this, it would be that it would encourage other people to do parts of libraries that exist on other platforms and that are missing on .NET. That's what I hope happens more.
Good. Thank you. Questions?
That's it.
Okay. Done. Thanks everyone. Thanks Gabor for the demo. Thanks Dean for the demo also. See you next Thursday for the triage or next Tuesday for the meeting. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.